Hello, Matt here from Up the Cherries in all departments. I think Everton will have a fairly decent season. Hopefully, the drama of the ownership saga comes to an end sooner rather than later. But in Sean Dyche, the Toffees have got a good pair of safe hands there that will keep the ship afloat on the pitch, and I think they'll have a fairly decent season. Um, in terms of the transfers that Everton's done, I think Jake O'Brien is a great signing, stands out for me. But I think for me, the longer you guys can keep hold of the likes of Braithwaite and get Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring again, that should help massively for you guys. But for us, going into the new season, we now have the void to fill from Dom Solanke, who's obviously left to gone to Spurs. But I'm confident in the likes of Eunice Sanel, Antonio Semenyo, and Justin Clivert that we've still got goal threats in us. Plus, if you believe what you read, we're in looking at signing another striker, possibly anyway. But overall, confident heading into the new season. Our transfer business, we've not signed many, but I think it's been a good window. A lot of planning for the future, with the likes of young goalkeeper Alex Poulsen, who's a great talent. Daniel Jebson, young striker who looks like he can only get better as well. But the standout signing for myself is Dean Hewson, a defender who can play across the back four, very mature above his age, class with the ball at his feet, and very strong in the tackle, which was a great coup from Juventus during this window. So very excited about him. In terms of predicted finishes for both teams, I think Everton will finish in a good steady 12th. I can't see you guys being in a relegation scrap this year. But yeah, a steady 12th. For Bournemouth, I think, we need to look at it, even with Dom going, and obviously that's a lot of goals. We still need to look at kicking on, and I think with the talent we have got in the squad, there's no reason why we still can't improve on last season. So I think for us, 10th for us is a target that I think we should be aiming for as a minimum. In terms of winning the league, I can't see anyone else but City still winning it. And their dominance will continue. In terms of relegated sides, for me, unfortunately, Leicester, I think, will be one of the sides that will be relegated. Southampton, and also Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Hi, Lee Judges here. Been asked to talk about Everton and Arsenal. My thoughts on Everton this season and what I think. Personally, I think that Everton are going to do a little bit better than they did last season. And they had all those sort of things hanging over them. And I think probably, if I'll be honest, that galvanised the team. And I think that will do that going forward. I think in Sean Dyche, you've got a very, very good manager that will get the very, very best out of Everton. I think Calvin Lewin, as stays fit, I do think that you've got a better chance of getting even better than what I think that you'll get to at the end of the season. Transfer business, it's very difficult to say on the transfers what they're going to do. I still think Everton, and I'm pretty sure you guys would think the same, like we all do. I suppose you need a little bit more. I think that another attacking option would be very, very good for you. And obviously, like, if you can keep the players that you got, I think that's very, very important. And if you had to sell somebody, like we know who we're talking about, then get this big money and then invest it in the team, So hopefully Braithwaite won't go, and I think that you'll be okay. And I think that Everton will do okay. And obviously got a soft spot for Everton, as you know, and hopefully that Everton will do well, and hopefully not flirt with that relegation, because going into the new stadium next season, that will be not what you want. And also I think, like last year at Goodison, I think that every game's going to be special for you fans. Enjoy it, because it's not the same. Even though you go into a shiny new stadium, I can tell you that you're always reminisce and miss the Goodison Parks and hybrids of this world. So, and I think that the atmosphere will make it tough home games for you. I think do well at home. Everton, always a tough place to go to, so got to keep that home form and that momentum going, and I think you'll be okay. As for Arsenal, what do I think of Arsenal? Transfers, I think like all of us can say that I don't think Arsenal have done quite enough to really satisfy the Arsenal fan base. I think that we've got a very, very good side, but I just think that maybe just a striker or an attacking option will help us out there. I think really that's what we're hoping, and just try and get us over the line above, of course, Liverpool and Manchester City, So where do I think Everton will come? I'll be really honest. I think if Everton come higher than 10th, that'd be fantastic for you guys. But I'm looking around about mid-table, with no worries of relegation, and hopefully Everton having a good cup run, unless of course they meet the Arsenal. For me, Arsenal, I'm going to be bold and brave, and I think that I'm going to say that Arsenal are going to win it this season. Last year you was down there, of course, at the last game of the season, and we were so close. It was so close, but it didn't really matter what we'd done in that game. I think we knew that it was all over, but to get that close and not actually win, it's tough. So hopefully we can just go one further this season and win the title. So let's hope so. On the relegation zone, I've been asked to say who I think is going to be relegated this season. I'm not putting Everton nowhere near it, as I've said. I think like two of the new boys will suffer. I think Southampton and Ipswich. I've got a funny feeling, I don't know how everybody feels, maybe about Forest. I don't really know what's going there on Forest. Lovely club and everything like that, but I just got a sneaky feeling that they're not going to be as comfortable as what people are making out. So that's my predictions. Listen, all I hope is that Everton have a fantastic season, and listen, Arsenal have got a bit of blue in their kit this season, so obviously that's for Kevin Campbell, because obviously he had a big love for Everton as well as he did Arsenal. So I'm hoping that that little bit of blue in the Arsenal new kit will see us through and we can win the title this year. Take care, guys. Take care.
Luke from Up the Villa. Everton this season, I think it would be good to probably see where they will finish based on no points deduction. What I mean by that is, I think last season without that points deduction, you'd have probably had a real steady, good season, and I think that's probably a positive. So I think for Everton, as long as you're not involved anywhere near the bottom, I think you can just grow and develop and try and get better and climb the table. I think Villa fans always hold Everton in high regard. We get on, we like each other, so that that's going to be good for you guys, going into your brand new stadium as well next season or potentially next year. So I think transfer wise, it's going to be interesting to see how Tim Irabunam does. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's had a good pre-season for you guys. So can he step up and bring it in the Premier League? So I think Onana's come the other way. We're all really excited. I know some Everton fans probably think, they've had a good deal with the 50 million, but I think the adaptation to an Unai Emery team, the elite level coaching from Unai Emery, I think you're probably in the long run going to see a little bit of a different Onana to what you guys saw at Everton. I think initially he's probably going to start in a deeper position, but as Kamara comes back and as we go into the season, I think there's potential there for Onana to develop and just push on and get a little bit further forward. That's the type of player that I think we've bought that can be potentially developed. Villa, we've got a really good, exciting season in front of us. We've got Champions League football, which I am really excited about. Champions League nights, it's going to be really, really exciting. Our transfer business has been a bit indifferent in places. We've let Douglas Luiz go. We've sold Moussa Diaby to Saudi. We've brought in Onana, Maatsen, and a lot of younger players as well. I know you were linked with Philogene, and we've got Philogene back as well. So I think our business isn't done. I think we'll be going late on in the window. I think we need a couple more players, but I think we should be fine. Villa in the Premier League, I think if we can try and mix it again with the top four, I'm not saying that we're going to qualify for the Champions League again, but I think European football would be absolutely massive for Aston Villa again. We need to continue doing that. Next question I've got from you guys. I think Everton will finish about 13th. I think Villa potentially anywhere from 4th at best down to 7th at worst. Manchester City will win the league. I think they'll win 5 in a row. I think they are far superior to any team in the Premier League. And I think the 3 teams that came up will go down. I think Ipswich will have a good go. But I think that, it's so difficult to stay up in this league. So those are my thoughts. Hope you like them. Up the Villa.
Hello, I'm Lewis Coughlin from the Besotted podcast for Brentford. And thanks very much for inviting me on to have a chat about the season that's about to start. So you asked me about thoughts of Everton going into the season. I mean, I think yet again you will do better than people expect. I thought it was a fairly incredible achievement last year, despite the points deductions, to end up reasonably comfortable. And that suggests to me that without having any handicap like that, you'll actually have a good season. I really rate Sean Dyche as a manager, and I think you're going to do okay. In terms of your transfer business, I know there's still some discussion about whether Calvert-Lewin's going to head off. If he does, then hopefully you've got a replacement lined up. But I know that you got 50 million quid for Onana, which struck me as very good business. He's never seemed to me to be a particularly good player. I might well be wrong, but I was surprised about the level of interest in him, and it feels like you got some good business done there. Holding on to Pickford feels really important, and it looks to me as though you got a couple of good players in O'Brien, which hopefully will be, a bit of an insurance policy should Branthwaite move on. And Jesper Lindstrom as well looks quite an exciting player. So feels like you've done fairly well in the window. In terms of Brentford, last season was absolutely destroyed by injuries. At one point we had 9 of our first 11 out injured, or including Tony suspended. So we kept going for a while, and then we just couldn't cope anymore, and second half of the season was a bit of a disaster. We recovered towards the end when we had the likes of Ethan Pinnock and Brian Mbeumo back, arguably our 2 most important players, but it was always a struggle. So this season really is going to be about trying to get the whole squad fit. We've still got a couple who are not yet back. Our 2 fullbacks, Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey. Hopefully they'll be back before too long. Josh De Silva is still long-term injured. But having a fit squad will give us every chance of picking up where we left off a couple of years ago. In terms of our transfer business, Carvalho came on board from Liverpool in the last few days, a real boost. We'd signed a while ago an exciting Brazilian striker called Thiago, probably there as a replacement for Ivan Toney once we managed to offload him. But actually having so many players coming back from injury will give our squad a really big boost. We haven't really, off the top of my head, I can't think that we've actually sold anybody. We released a couple of players who were at the end of their contract, like Shandon Baptiste, who never quite realised his potential at the club. And of course, Ivan Toney, still with us. We know he wants to move on. But we need a decent transfer fee for him. So hopefully something can be done in the next few weeks, because the will he won't he is situation with Tony has been rumbling on for best part of 2 years now, and it's time that distraction ended. Fantastic player, but he doesn't want to be with us. We coped absolutely fine without him for several months last season. We've got enough talent up front to cope without Tony. So if we can get good money for him, then it will have been a fairly good window. There's also talk about trying to get hold of Liam O'Shea, I think he's called, Burnley centre-back, which would be good, just to give us another option at the back. But otherwise, I'm happy with the squad that we've got. And I think, as I've said, everyone's fit. We have a good season. In terms of the two clubs where we're going to finish, I think we'll both be comfortably mid-table, probably slightly higher than mid-table. So I'm going to predict that Brentford will finish 10th and Everton will be 11th. I think the top 7 pretty much speak for themselves. 8 downwards, it's anyone's game really, but we'll see what happens there. I'm going to have a surprise prediction for champions this season. I think it's going to be Chelsea, although it does seem chaotic and the size of their squad is fairly obscene. They have got enough talent now and were beginning to show some real form, consistent form towards the end of last season. So I think, while my head says Arsenal, I'm thinking that Chelsea will be a serious competitor this season, and I think it'll end up being between those two, but I think Chelsea will just edge it. And in terms of relegation, I think it's time for, speaking of clubs who've bought like crazy, I think it's time that Forest got relegated, and I'm going to predict that Leicester and Southampton will join them. Thanks for having me on. Very best of luck for this season, and look forward to seeing you at Goodison Park, and hopefully you'll be down for the game in West London as well. Best of luck, fellas. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name's Adi Packham. I'm the presenter of the Albion Royal Radio Show on Radio Reverb here in Brighton. New season is upon us, and obviously we have our big season opener against Everton next week, which we're all looking forward to. Obviously, we all go into the new season with hopes and dreams and anticipation. For Everton fans, I'm guessing that's one that you're going into with a tinge of sadness and a lot of apprehension about what is actually going on off the pitch. Obviously, last year you had a lot of issues in terms of the points deductions and the stuff with the ownership issues. On the pitch, if you hadn't had those points deductions, you would have finished just behind us, actually. In terms of our finish last season, bit disappointing, really. I mean, obviously, it was our first ever season in Europe. At the beginning of the season, I think all the Albion fans' thoughts were all on the European campaign. I think that's possibly the case with Roberto De Zerbi as well. And we had a lot of problems, a lot of injuries, and I think that was actually an issue that we had last season, where we just maybe we didn't have enough in the tank to compete on all fronts, but the injuries certainly hurt us, and hopefully we'll go into the season with a cleaner bill of health and we can compete a lot better. In terms of Everton, again, like I said, the issues for yourselves are probably more off the pitch than on them. Obviously, you brought in Ndiaye, who I think is a great player. We saw him play last season for Marseille against us. Can't really remember too much about his performance, but I know he was very highly rated at Sheffield United, and there was a lot of surprise that he didn't stay at Sheffield United last season and play in the Premier League with them. But yeah, I think it could be a good signing for you. Obviously, Dyche has got his detractors. His style of play isn't necessarily the prettiest, but he gets results. And, you know, he said himself last season was probably his best ever achievement with the stuff that was going on off the scenes. Obviously, at Brighton, we've had our own issues off the pitch in our history. You know, we nearly went out of existence in 1997, and you know, we're still here to fight and tell the tale and offer advice to anyone who needs it in regards to how you get over that. I mean, bad owners kill football, right? In terms of Brighton this season, we're excited. We're probably a little bit upset, a little bit bemused. by losing Roberto De Zerbi. I think at the end of the day, you don't play poker with Tony Bloom, and I think he talked himself out of a job basically. Towards the end of the last season, I think there's certain things that he was doing behind the scenes. I mean, like I said earlier, that the injuries certainly didn't help, but there was stuff that was that we should have finished stronger than we actually did, and we left too many points out on the pitch. Again, injuries didn't help, but yeah, it was a little bit of a frustrating end to it. So, I mean, were we surprised to see him go? Maybe a little bit, but with it was a weird ending to his time with us, and we wish him luck, but yeah, we move on. We have a new man. Fabian Hurtler is our new manager, 31 years old. There's a rite of passage you have as a football fan. One day you're younger than the players. Next minute you're younger than the manager. Now the manager's younger than the players. It seems to be a little bit strange, but he's very, very highly rated in Germany. It's not unusual to have young managers in the German game. I mean, Klopp was 34 when he started. There's a few others that have gone on to bigger and better things as well that have started at 28, 29. And, age is just a number. If his ideas are good, and Tony Bloom's got a really good track record of hiring managers. So that is one thing. I mean, losing Pascal Gross is a major problem for us. The guy's a hero. He's a legend here. He's arguably our greatest ever player of all time. If you consider what he's done and the level he's done, obviously most of our existence has been probably in the lower divisions. So the fact that Pascal's been here for 7 years and have more assists, more goals than any other player. The Gross turn is just a thing of wonder. And of course, there's that brilliant goal he scored at Goodison, the slowest breakaway goal ever. I mean, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed by that. But it's a beautiful thing. We loved it. There's been signings. Yankuba Minter's come from Newcastle. Mats Wife comes from Feyenoord, where Minter was on loan last season. Malik Yalkori comes in from Gothenburg. Mario Kozio Dubry came from Arsenal. And Ibrahim Osman, he linked us after joining us in January. Minter's looked great pre-season so far. He's very exciting. We haven't seen much of Wife, but the one I think could possibly be the standout here is Malik Yalkore. Now he's only 18. He came from the Right to Dream Academy. He's only had a handful of appearances at Gothenburg, but he is one who could go on to bigger and better things. And there's a lot of talk going on behind the scenes. Obviously, we'll manage his minutes. But yeah, there's an awful lot of excitement. Obviously, we still got João Pedro in the mix as well. We've got probably not so. We had last season we had an awful lot of changes, probably more changes than any other team throughout the season from match to match. I think that's going to steady. I think that there will be a number one. I think that will be Bart Verbruggen. He starred for the Dutch during the Euros, didn't he? So that's exciting. Think we still need something in defence. There's talk of Ferdi Kadiglu coming in from Fenerbahce. There's talk of Matt O'Reilly coming in from Celtic. But it's just talk at this stage. And until I see them holding up a shirt, I won't believe any of the hype. And if certain journalists who think they've got the inside track don't admit their sources. I'm sure you might know who we're talking about, but there's no love lost between Brighton and this particular individual. I'm not even going to name him. In terms of Everton, I think on the pitch, I think you'll be okay. I think you'll pick up enough points. I think staying in this division for you next season is the major thing, because you do not want to have the best division, the best stadium in the Championship next season. I think you're going to be safe. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Branthwaite. There's been issues. I believe Man United have been putting in some derisory bids for him. But he's one that's highly rated by I know by yourselves and by an awful lot of people. So there's a lot of talk about that. And we're delighted to see that Neil Morpay's back. We're probably more delighted than you. Neil's universally loved at Brighton, not necessarily for his on-field antics sometimes, but he's one of those players that you love that people love to hate. And if he plays for you, you tend to love him. If he doesn't play for you, you tend to hate him. But he plays for you, and I don't think you love him that much. But hopefully he'll get some joy for you this year, because he's just a really, really fun guy to have around. In terms of who's going to go down, oh God, I have absolutely no idea. There's talk of, I think Southampton could struggle. I think Leicester could struggle. Usually it's the teams that come up are the ones that are going to be looking over the shoulders, but it's going to be a tough division this year. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have got proven track records at this level. I wouldn't like to call. Hopefully we're not going to be one of those. I think we'll be okay. We want to be finishing top half again. And, after last season's European adventure, we want to try and get back into that. And, it's your job as a football club to be as successful as you possibly can and to win as much stuff as you possibly can. And hopefully see that Crystal Palace get relegated. That is probably all I can say. So thanks. We'll see you again at some point, I'm sure. Good luck with your season, apart from on the first day. I've been Adi Packham. Don't forget, we're the Albion Raw on Radio Reverb in Brighton, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Hi guys, Charlie here from Chelsea Fan TV and Blue Brother CFC channel to answer a few questions on Everton and Chelsea. What are my thoughts on Everton going into the season? I don't know, really. Kind of mixed. I think it's a plus that so far you've been able to hold on to Jared Brantwaite. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's not gone anywhere either, which is a positive for Everton. And there's been, one or two reasonable additions in the window. But I think Everton very much kind of as they were compared to how they finished the season. I don't think an awful lot has necessarily changed at the club over the summer. I don't think anything that wasn't expected to happen has happened. So, I think Everton will be okay. I don't think they'll go down or anything. I just think they'll be kind of solid mid-table kind of side under Dyche. Everton maybe should be wanting a bit more than that, but I think that's kind of currently where they are at. In terms of Everton's transfer business, obviously big blow to lose Amadou Onana, but £50 million is a lot of money for him. I think the club probably expected him to go this summer. In terms of who has come in, obviously Iliman Ndiaye, the striker from Marseille, I think he used to be at Sheffield United. I think he's a good player. Be interesting to see how he does in the Premier League. Obviously, Everton do need some more firepower going forward, some more goals in the team. Obviously, Neil Maupay's returned from Brentford, loan spell there. Don't know how much of a role he's going to play. And then obviously the centre-backs come in from France as well. So maybe tighten up a little bit defensively with him. So I think the business has been okay. You might want a bit more quality added in there. But it's hard to find that Premier League quality, when you're shopping around, you haven't got the biggest budget. So I think the business has been okay, to be perfectly honest. I don't think Everton fans, I could be wrong here, but I don't think Everton fans maybe expected too much more than this. They spent a reasonable amount of money and some quality has come into the football club, but they do need a lot more. And they've just got to hope that they can keep hold of the likes of Calvert-Lewin, keep hold of the likes of Jared Brantwaite in the final weeks of the window. In terms of my thoughts on Chelsea going into the season, mixed, to be honest. I think the pre-season campaign has not been the best. Obviously, I know results don't matter in pre-season, but it is one win out of 6 games. Defensively, we look a bit vulnerable. Going forward, we've looked good, though. Created a lot of opportunities, got a lot of quality in those attacking areas. Pedro Neto is going to make a big difference. But yeah, I'm kind of unsure how to feel. I kind of feel like maybe we're not ready for the season yet, but only time will tell. So I think mixed feelings heading into it. Some positives, but also quite a lot of unknowns as well. In terms of our own transfer business, I think again mixed seems to be a common theme here. Obviously, the signing of Pedro Neto is massive. Huge fan of his. Think it's a brilliant piece of business to have kept that one under wraps, kept it quiet. And yeah, very much pleased about that one. In terms of the other business, Toasted on the free, I think is an opportunity. There's a few young lads, as always, that have come in. Dewsbury Hall for 30 million quid could be interesting. Obviously knows the Enzo Maresca system very well, so be interesting to see how he fits in, how many minutes he actually ends up playing at the club this season. But the rest of it's kind of very much so. We're still looking for a striker. The Omorodion deal fell through. Don't know what's going on with the Conor Gallagher sale at the moment. Maybe we get Victor Osimhen, maybe we get Joao Felix, maybe we get Ivan Toney. I don't really know. So things can obviously change, but right now I'd say it's mixed, but Pedro Neto is obviously a big plus. In terms of a predicted finish for Chelsea, I think we will finish in 4th place. We've got the quality to do it. It's wide open. I think the top 3 are pretty clear. Liverpool, you could maybe pull into the top 4 race because you don't know what you're going to get with Arne Slot. But I think, Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, Man United, Villa, etc., all kind of going for that 4th spot. I think it's definitely there for the takers. I'm backing Chelsea to finish 4th. In terms of Everton, I think probably mid-table. I'd say maybe somewhere around 13th or 14th would be my prediction for Everton. In terms of who will win the league, I don't think you can look past City. Again, I know Arsenal will be hungry. They're raring to go. They won't want to miss out for a 3rd season on the spin. City perhaps haven't had the best preparation for the season, not done an awful lot of transfer business, but could be Pep Guardiola's last season in charge, and he'll want to go out on a high. So, yeah, for me, I think it will just be City, but I think Arsenal will run them very close again. In terms of who will be relegated, this one's a bit more tricky because there's no sort of standout, obviously crapped sides like there were last season with, Sheffield United, Luton and Burnley. But we also, I don't want to just write off the Premier League, the new boys, but you can't really look beyond Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich. I mean, I can't really see any other standout candidates. I know Brentford finished 16th last season. I wouldn't expect them to be struggling so much again this season. Certainly not enough to go down. You kind of look at your Nottingham Forests and stuff. I don't think they'll go down. Wolves, I think, will be fine as well. So, I mean, it's a bit of a boring answer, but probably just going to end up going with the 3 promoted sides. But there isn't really any standout poor side. So I'm going to be interested to see kind of how that relegation battle starts to take shape. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts ahead of the current season.
What's going on, people? It is D from Back of the Nest here quickly for a preview for the upcoming season from a Palace perspective. Thank you for having me on the channel once again. I'll start it off with my thoughts on Everton going into the season. I think there's been some solid additions. It has been a weird transfer window for every club involved. I think so far the winners have been the likes of West Ham, Villa. So the big clubs haven't strengthened maybe at the level that we're used to. So I think that kind of opens up the door for Everton to be a bit more competitive, because the Premier League in itself, I think, is going to be very competitive next year due to the lack of signings. But I think it's been there's still some question marks with Everton in terms of the ownership, which one of our owners, funny enough, John Textor, is willing and very interested in buying those shares in Everton to have a complete say. So that's something to look forward to, I guess, as Everton fans, to get that ownership sorted. So from a Palace perspective, looking at Everton this summer, I think, it hasn't been awful, but there are still some question marks, especially with the ownership going into next season. And as I mentioned, with the transfer business in the Premier League, Everton so far in a window, maybe you might have not signed a lot of players, but I think you've signed a few decent youngsters, especially with O'Brien, who, of course, came from Palace and went to Lyon, and now he's at Everton. So we've managed to get a bit of money from that deal as well. I think he was highly rated coming through Palace. The only problem was that he was not willing to sign a new contract at the football club due to the fact that Joachim Andersen and Mark Gahey were the 2 starters. So we couldn't really promise him game time. And he eventually ended up going to Lyon for nothing, around £1 million. And now he's in the Premier League playing for Everton. I think he's a very good addition for you lot. Ndiaye as well from Marseille. I think that's a good addition, especially with his age. So you've signed a few youngsters and trying to hopefully grow them and develop them and then sell them on for a higher price tag. So I think those have been good additions. And in terms of my thoughts going into the season, Of course, we've sold the Elise, which is a blow, but it's not the end of the world. I think we're well positioned to go into the new season. We are looking still to make new signings. We have made the likes of Kamada, Sa, and Riyadh come to the football club, which are very solid additions. And for the price that we paid for those three, I think that's what makes the business even better than reported out there. So I've been very happy. I've been happy, not very happy. I've been happy as a Palace fan so far in the window. We still have to probably strengthen left wing back up front and maybe like a number 10 or right wing back. It depends. But the forward position is a bit of a grey area due to the fact that we don't know where, for example, Sarr is going to be playing under Glasner. But I think 3 more additions for Palace and it'll be a very good window. But so far, with the additions that we have signed, I think we're all happy. We just need a few more, which I think we will make eventually. And my predicted finish for Everton and Palace is that I'm going to go for another top 10 finish for Palace, 10th place. I think if we do make the signings, I think we've got a very good manager that we saw towards the end of last season. We've got a solid squad. We've been improving the depth, which is very important for Palace, and that is why those signings have been good for us. I think we could have another top 10 finish for Everton. Hopefully a year of a bit more comfortable mid-table finish. I think Everton's been just around that relegation area. There's been lots of questions about the future of the football club, financially, etc. So I think another mid-table finish whilst we're trying to sort out stuff behind the scenes. So let's say 13th or 14th place finish for Everton whilst we're trying to sort out all of those points that I've listed. I think that would be solid for Everton fans. In terms of who I think will be winning the league, I can't put it past Man City. I know people have been questioning their business so far, but for me, Man City are still the favourites. And the teams that are going to be getting relegated, Ipswich, Southampton, and a funny part of me is just thinking Brentford. They've had a funny summer, and we'll see what happens with Tony as well. But maybe they just end up staying up. But I know Brentford fans have been a very negative. It's between Brentford and Leicester, but we don't know. I can make these predictions, and you never know with the signings, etc. For example, Leicester are looking to sign Zaha, for example. I think that would be a very good addition, and the transfer market is not shut yet. So it's a very, very early prediction in terms of relegation that is hard to predict right now anyways. But I think potentially Brentford, Ipswich, and also Southampton. But that's it from me.
Hi everyone at the Toffee Blues. My name is Don Bett and I'm from the Fulhamish podcast. Looking at Everton ahead of the season, I really don't really know what to expect. I mean, you'd hope under Sean Dyche you'd be pushing on now after the points deductions of last season, hoping that stuff's behind you. But with the ownership situation at Everton, is that going to cause more turmoil? I don't know. I don't think Everton are going to go down, but I don't think it's necessarily a season where they're going to be pushing back to finish in the top 10 and pushing for, European football back where they were sort of in their glory days and sort of where they were sort of under Ancelotti. So for me, I think they're really an unpredictable side. So I think they'll stay up. So if I'm in a actual position, I'll probably say they'll finish around 14th. But I don't think more than that. Moving on to their transfer business, obviously you signed the centre-back from Lyon, the centre midfielder from obviously Aston Villa, and then obviously Ndiaye up front. But the loss of Onana, how big's that going to be? He was probably your best player over the last couple of seasons, or the player who sort of stuck out the most. So it's how big of a miss he's going to be in midfield for Everton. And, it's whether you keep Calvert-Lewin. He's on his day, he's a great goal scorer. And if you lose him, if a team like Newcastle comes in or another team who's put in a good bid and, considering the financial situation at Everton, is something they're gonna put forward. So, yeah, it's hard to gauge, and obviously the window's still open for a few more weeks, but I'm not confident on Everton massively pushing on from last season. I think it's probably going to be quite a similar year. When looking at Fulham ahead of a new season, I think quite a few of us are fairly confident. I know you can sort of pinpoint the loss of João Palhinha to Bayern Munich, but I feel like it's been quite a relatively normal pre-season. We've not done any jet setting. We've not flown over to America, the Far East, places like that, Australia. We've stuck in Europe. We had a training camp in Portugal. We went to Germany for a friendly. We had some good results. We played some behind closed doors games where we smacked up Watford and QPR. Then we went across Portugal, beat Benfica 1-0, then lost to Sevilla 2-1, and then went to Germany and beat Hoffenheim 2-0. So we've had a good pre-season. We made some good signings in Isaac Cuenca, coming in defence to reinforce with the losses of Tosin and Tim Ream. And then obviously the big signing of Emil Smith-Rowe from Arsenal to sort of come in and bolster our sort of attacking options into 3 players who play behind Rodrigo Muniz or Raul Jimenez up front. So our transfer business has been good so far, but I still think we're missing a few key players. The João Palhinha replacement. We've already been linked with Andre from Fluminense and, McTominay, although he's not really a holding midfielder. And obviously the links to Calvin Phillips. And then when it comes centre-back, Joaquim Anderson from Crystal Palace and obviously Diego Carlos from Aston Villa. If we can get that holding midfielder over the line, get that right-sided centre-back over the line, I think we can push on this season. My expectations of Fulham this season is not to be any worse than last season and hopefully push on. I think most Fulham fans would take fighting for a top 10 position in the league and another cup run, like we reached the semi-finals of the League Cup last season, obviously knocking out Everton on penalties on the way in the quarters. So for us, I think we can push on. It's just those couple of players we need. And I think we really can in the quality of someone like Emil Smith-Rowe. He's had a great pre-season, 2 goals in 2 games. We've got some winnable fixtures coming up. Yes, we go to United on the opening day, but we've got a home game against Leicester, away to Ipswich, to the promoted side. So it's a good chance to get points on the board early, which I think is always a critical aspect because that's the best way of doing things in this league. We've seen that with Fulham the last couple of years. We had an all right start, and it's giving you that foundation for the rest of the season. It doesn't mean you're playing catch up. So yeah, I'm confident ahead of Fulham going into the season, and I think we can really push for top 10 and hopefully have a good cup run as well. In regard to actual predicted finishes, when it comes to Everton, as I said previously, I think 14th. I think that's where they'll probably finish the season. I don't think they've gone and done bits in the transfer window, but I don't think they've got necessarily loads of those where I've seen even with the loss of Onana. So yeah, I think around 14th. And I think when it comes to Fulham, I think we can push on from last season. I think we can fight for top 10. Whether we make it is a different question. So I'll probably predict us to finish about 11th. When it comes to who's going to win the league, you've got your main suspects in Arsenal, Manchester City. A lot of people are saying this has got to be Arsenal's year. But I think Pep just wants to continue breaking records. And I can't see Arsenal topping Manchester City, especially if they don't sign a striker. I think that's the missing piece of the jigsaw for Arsenal. Yes, they've got players who can score goals, Kai Saka, Kai Havertz, Odegaard, but I don't think you can win the league without a 20-goal-a-season striker, and I don't think they're going to do that. So I think for me, Man City will actually just win it again. In regard to teams who are going to go down, I think Leicester and Ipswich. I think Ipswich have sort of come up, double promotions, and I don't think, basically going to be playing with a League One team in the Premier League with a few signings. Leicester, with all the financial situations surrounding them, losing Keane and Dewsbury Hall to Chelsea, I think them two will go straight back down. And I know they're rivals, but, Brentford, have they sort of rode their luck? Tony, is he going to be playing to the best of his ability this season? I don't know. If he doesn't go away this summer, he's going on a free next summer. So how motivated is he going to play? I know they've signed Fabio Carvalho, our former youth prospect, but, 27 million on a player who's not really been proven in the Premier League. He had a good 12 months at Fulham and a good 6 months at Hull on loan. He didn't really stick up too much when he was on loan at Leipzig. He's not done much at Liverpool. So I think Brentford are the ones to watch. Another team I might throw in the mix is Wolves because they seem to be selling their best players. So I think Southampton, actually one of the other prime teams, will stay up. But yeah, I'd probably go for Brentford or Wolves alongside Leicester and Ipswich.
Hi guys, it's Mikey Pensy-Smith here, an Ipswich fan from the Blue Monday podcast. I've been asked for my thoughts on Everton ahead of the new season. And wow, it's a massive season for you, isn't it? The last one at Goodison Park and just one that you simply must stay up. And I think you'll do that because there's not going to be any points deductions this season. And you've got an excellent manager in Sean Dyche. In Jordan Pickford, you've got one of the best goalkeepers, not just in the league, but in the world. And I think Branthwaite, if you can keep hold of him, and Tarkowski are an excellent centre-back partnership as well. The only thing I do worry about a little bit is where your goals are going to come from. I know you weren't particularly prolific last season. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on and Jai, the new man, especially if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is sold. In terms of transfers, I think you got a really good fee for Onana, and keeping hold of Branthwaite, if you do, would be a real success for you. And Jai is a decent signing. Seen a little bit of him. I'll reserve judgment on the other signings because I just haven't seen enough of them in action. As for Ipswich, I mean, we're just delighted to be here, really. But with a world-class coach in the dugout and Kieran McKenna, kind of feel like we can maybe do something this season. And we need a few more signings, definitely in central midfield, left wing, and up front. But if we do get those across the line in time, I think we might just be okay. In terms of our transfer business, we signed Ben Johnson from West Ham, and then we've signed some high-end, shall we say, players who played in the Championship from last season. The headliner is Amari Hutchinson, who we had on loan last season, and we managed to sign him from Chelsea this summer, and he's a fantastic player, and I think he's going to rip it up in the Premier League. George Hurst, our centre forward, unfortunately is injured, so we badly need to find some replacements in that position. And as I mentioned already, we are a little bit light in central midfield as well, and we've got an injury to Nathan Broadhead, who you know well, in the left wing position, so we're a little bit light there too. So yeah, transfers that we've got, happy with, but we definitely need to make a couple more by the end of the month. In terms of predictions, I've gone for my club Ipswich to finish 13th, which might seem a little bit high, but I can't bring myself to put us lower simply because of the manager and the success that we've had since he's come into the club. But I'd obviously take 17th if offered it. As for Everton, I think you'll be fine. I've gone for 15th, so I've got us finishing above you, which might raise a few eyebrows on Merseyside. But yeah, I think you'll be fine, and you'll go into the new stadium still as a Premier League club. I think both teams will be safe actually by the time we meet at Goodison Park. I've gone for Arsenal to win the league. I think it's their time. I think City are kind of coming towards the end of a cycle, whereas Arsenal I think are really coming strong now. The three relegated teams I've gone for are Leicester and Forest, potential points deductions for both of those sides, and the other one is Southampton, who finished 4th last season in the Championship and went up through the playoffs. But yeah, all the best to Everton ahead of the new season.
Hi, yes. So thank you for the invite. It's Reedy from Leicester Fan TV. Hope you're all doing well. And yeah, let's get into it. So firstly, what are your thoughts on Everton going into the season? Well, the last couple of years, from what we've seen of Everton and how like a Leicester fan looked into Everton as a club, we've been saying like, is it about time they go down? Just because the amount of times they've been like close to the relegation, and then even last year with the point deduction, it kind of felt like that it was inevitable you were going to go down. But again, with Sean Dyche, I feel like you are just going to always have that sort of mentality to have enough to stay up in a way. Again, you've still got Branthwaite in that defence, and you just still got that sort of team that it isn't a relegation. It's not a relegation side, is it? So for me, going into the season, I honestly do think Everton will stay up. As much as I might be a biased Leicester fan and say I want them to go down because of what happened the year you went down and how close it was to you get relegated and we get relegated from what I can remember. So yeah, but again, I do think you'll stay up with that Sean Dyche mentality. I do think you'll stay up. Next question: what have you made to Everton's transfer business going into the season? Well, obviously I don't know too much about the players and like obviously who you brought in, who you brought out, but I'm looking at a list now, and a big one for me, from what I can see, is you have lost Onana, who obviously was a big player in your squad. That again for me was one of them sort of players like a lot of teams must have to have a functioning team. Like for us a few years ago, it was Ndidi. That sort of role was always that player to drive the ball and always get hold of the ball up and just do everything they can in that midfield to keep you winning games and whatnot. So yeah, that's one. Again, Ben Godfrey. Again, he's not been a starter from what I can remember, but you've obviously got rid of him to go to Atalanta. Any more that I can think of? No, not that you getting rid of. But obviously you got Jack Harrison, who we were linked with before as well, before we got relegated. Another one where I think you had him on last season, didn't you? You had him on loan and you got him back again. And I'd say that it's a good signing because again, he's that sort of Premier League standard that he'll give you what you can to get out of him. And I feel like there is enough there for him to show that he is Premier League quality. And Dye from Marseille, he's been a big transfer for quite a while for a lot of clubs, and obviously you've gone and sorted that, which again could be the reason you've bought him for losing Onana as well. So that could be a good replacement. Obviously, don't know too much about Ndiaye, but I've heard that he's a really big rumoured name around a lot of clubs. And again, like I say, you've got him. And anyone else? Lindstrom, and obviously I know he's a Danish player that I feel like he's obviously not Prem proven, but from Napoli, he's obviously done it in the Serie A, so maybe he's got the quality to show it in the Premier League. But other than that, I'd say it's a decent transfer window for you. But I'd say that again, I feel like you've obviously lost players and then brought players in. You're basically at the same point as you were last season, just with losing players and adding players back into the squad. So, next question. What are my thoughts on Leicester going into the season? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in our club at the moment. Again, point deduction looming as well, same as you. Like last season, you didn't know what was happening with that. Again, just getting promoted, but having to change managers because obviously, now Enzo's gone to Chelsea, and with losing obviously Jude Beale to Chelsea as well. There's a lot of things going on. It's probably more worrying than anything to know that there is a lot of things riding on us staying up, and that is literally transfers. That is, again, the manager working well with his tactics and stuff. I don't believe he can keep us up in my eyes because I don't think Cooper's good enough. That's just my opinion. Again, someone like Sean Dyche, he's completely the different one. He knows what to do to stay in that Premier League. And then it comes down to the point deduction. How many points will we get going into the season? It might even be later on in the season, like you did last season, but will it give us enough hope to stay up? I honestly don't think it will. I think it'll be about 10 to 12 point deduction, and that alone is going to be on the back foot, and you're basically asking to be a mid-table team when you are literally fighting for relegation. That's how bad it is at the moment at Leicester. So yeah. What are your own thoughts on your transfer business at Leicester? They've been positive. I don't think I'm not happy with any of the transfers. I actually am quite happy with most of them. We've recently got Buonanotte from Brighton on loan. Youngster, 19 years old, Argentinian. Again, it's not anything special, but I feel like he's quite young, and again, Argentinian will have that sort of tax on him to be like, you surely got to be somewhat decent in a way. There's nothing wrong on it. It's just saying because of Argentina. A lot of players from like Brazil, Argentina, all that seem to be quite highly rated players. Got Bobby Dick-Over-Reid from Fulham. He, again, for me, was a good signing because, again, Prem experience. Yes, he's probably not a full-on starter, but I do feel like he is one that can change a game or will be able to keep us in games if he does come on or even start. And again, Prem proven. That's all I'm asking for. Coley, I would probably say with Coley, it's a very risky signing. Because for £15 million, I honestly feel like it could be a risk. It is a risk, but it could pay off massively. I put him on the level of someone like Fofana when we bought him from Saint Etienne. We didn't know who he was really, but he could be something brilliant. And he's obviously Italian. He is only 21 or 22, I think. He has been a good like star boy sort of player, maybe. Like he will be that one for the future in the Italian squad. So hopefully for us, he could turn out very well. And then the last one really was Golding because Fatu did re-sign after being on loan last season, which again was out of all the signings we made, that is the best one we could have asked for because Fatu last season was absolutely incredible. And I honestly think myself, in my opinion, he will be that 60, 70 million pound player in the next couple of years. I'd probably, again, I can't mention anything like quality-wise because we've not seen him in the Premier League, but from what we've seen last season in the Championship, Fatawu, I would honestly say he could be like that sort of like Doku style of player, that player who can get into that top 3 or 4 teams in the Premier League, because I honestly feel like the potential there for only like a 19, 20-year-old is just unbelievable. So I think for 17 million, what we got for him was an absolute steal. And then obviously, like I said before, moving on to Golding, he was a player that we kind of got on a free, but not on a free. We paid 5 million for him, but he came in with the deal with Dewsbury, kind of like a swap as well, as with the money in that as well. So again, a youngster. A lot of them are youngsters, but I'd prefer to be having a young squad than having an outdated squad who might not be up to the standard anymore. And they might not be good enough in the league anymore. And then obviously outgoings, we've just released a lot of players. Dewsbury obviously gone. Other than that, they're all been released. Marco Brighton, Ian Acho, Dennis Pratt, Harry Suter's now gone on loan to Sheffield United. And then other than that, they're just outgoings on like because they ran out of contract, which again is not the greatest things because a lot of them players were Premier League standard, but it is what it is. So the next question, predicted finish for Everton and Leicester City. Well, I did mention it a bit before. I honestly don't think Everton will go down. As much as I want them because of how we got relegated this season we did. But I don't think Everton will go down. I think they will finish in like 16th, 17th place, if I'm totally honest. And avoid relegation once again. And then Leicester. See, this is the one where I'd take 17th right now because of everything that was going on, like I said earlier, about the point deduction, the new manager, everything changing at the club at the moment going into the Premier League season. I would just take 17th or higher. That's all I'd take. Again, as long as we stay in this league with a point deduction, I think that's a miracle already. I think if we get relegated, I feel like we've all kind of expected it, but we have to fight for it. We have to do everything we can to stay in this league. And yeah, we just want to make sure that we can get to stay in this league after this season. Like that is the main aim. So again, 17th or higher. That was all I'd take. And then the last 2 questions: who will win the league and who will be relegated? Okay, so who will win the league? See, this is a difficult one. Well, is it a difficult one? Man City's the easy answer, but do I think anyone else can challenge? Again, Arsenal will challenge, but I just can't see past Man City, if I'm totally honest. So I'm going to go Man City to win the league. And then the bottom 3, see, there's many teams that I've kind of thought, if they don't have a great season, they are going to be struggling. And I do think Ipswich will be the ones that do get a bottom. I don't think they're going to have enough in them to stay up. Just, again, they've got a League One side in the Premier League. Fair enough to them. They've got to the Premier League, hands down, well done. But I just don't think they've got the quality anymore to stay up in the league. I just can't see it. 19th place, I'm gonna go for Southampton. Again, to the promoted teams, I honestly do feel like they will go back down. And I'm only saying Leicester staying up because it's my team. Again, I can't say we're going to get relegated. I would say that there's a chance we will because of what things going on, but I don't want us to relegate, so I'm not going to put us there. I'm going to put us 17th. And then 18th, I'd like to see Forest there. But I think there's going to be one team that's like been in the league quite a while now, other than Everton, that I feel like will struggle. And I feel like it's just one season where it just doesn't work for them. Maybe like a Brentford or like a Wolves. Again, they've just lost one of the Neto to Chelsea. So there's a lot of teams where I feel like if they have an average season, it could really hit them and it could really kill them into a relegation spot. So yeah, one of them. I don't know. I'm not going to say who because again, everyone could easily put Leicester in that 18th spot, but I'm not going to do that. So yeah, hopefully that is good for you, and I'll hopefully we can invite each other back on throughout the season when we play each other. Cheers.
Hello to the Toffee Blues. My name is Jay from the JSGC Man City fan channel. I'm going to be giving some of my thoughts ahead of the upcoming 24-25 season. So what are my thoughts on Everton going into the season? I think a lot does depend on what's going to happen once more with PSR, back to that, and points deduction. I think if Everton can avoid any points deductions this season, I can see Everton being comfortably above relegation. So I don't think Everton should be thinking too much about relegation, more thinking about pushing on and making some progress, finishing mid-table. Maybe they can sneak a top half and look to build from there. After all, it is Everton's final full season at Goodison Park, so they're going to want to end it on a high rather than the potential threat of relegation, in my opinion, which I think if Everton do avoid the points deductions again like they had last season, then I think that they should be fine heading into the upcoming season, and there's no reason why they can't have every success and maybe even a potential push with a cup run, maybe in the League Cup or FA Cup. We'll have to wait and see. Now, what have I made of Everton's transfer business so far? I think in terms of the outs, so Nana stands out as being the big absentee, the player that's left Everton and joined Aston Villa, a huge hole to fill in midfield. I've seen Everton have added O'Brien coming in from Lyon and adding Ndiaye from Marseille, a good quality striker there, always looking for goals, which will help Everton to try and score goals, which when you're going up against bottom half Premier League teams, there's very fine margins to separate these teams in them games, and it's all about being clinical and putting your opportunities away, which I think Everton added a little bit of quality there in attack. So I think Ndiaye is a very good player. I imagine Everton will probably be looking towards maybe adding a couple more players before the end of the transfer window. I know from the City end that Everton have been getting linked with making a move for Calvin Phillips, which everyone seems to turn their nose up at Calvin Phillips and thinks, oh, Calvin Phillips, that Manchester City flop, is just a player that doesn't quite suit Manchester City, and just because you're not a player that suits City and suits Pep doesn't make you a bad player. Had a bad loan at West Ham, but I think he's certainly more than capable of providing competitive squad rotation and options should Everton choose to make a move. And I personally think if you could nab him on a season-long loan, he'd be able to showcase what he can do if Everton do, of course, choose to make a move for him. Now, what are the thoughts on Manchester City heading into the season? I think City going to be looking to continue to look to make history, become the first ever side that goes on to win 5 Premier League titles, of course, making history last season and being the first ever side to do 4 consecutive Premier Leagues. You've got to keep that motivation very high in the squad, and obviously having an outstanding manager like Pep Guardiola always does help, and so the ambition's always got to be winning the biggest and best trophies, so it won't just be thinking about trying to keep the interest off Arsenal and Liverpool and everybody else in the Premier League to try and sit on top, but also ensuring that we're competing on all fronts when it comes to the domestic cups and when it comes to the Champions League as well. And you've got the new format and more games in the Champions League, so squad depth going to be absolutely key for Manchester City this season. That takes me very nicely onto my thoughts on Manchester City's transfer business. Seem to be losing a little bit of depth, letting Sergio Gomez go earlier in the transfer window and pushing on from there, and we've allowed Julian Alvarez to leave for a really good transfer fee of over £80 million, so it's up to Manchester City now to start to look at the squad and identify areas that you can improve. And when you're looking at a near perfect team and a near perfect squad, it is very hard to be able to add quality to that, but I imagine City will be looking at another attacker with Alvarez leaving, and there's obviously the big gaping hole that City have in their squad, which is looking towards Rodri, and if he picks up an injury, such a huge important player for City, we don't really have option B if he wasn't to be available for City, and I think City will just be having a look at that and thinking about adding another defensive midfielder who can maybe complement Rodri and play alongside him, but also can alternate with him should he need a rest or he does pick up an injury, which, touch wood, that doesn't happen. Now, my predicted finish for Everton and for Manchester City, I think Everton, as long as they avoid a points deduction, will sit pretty comfortable in the Premier League, so I'm going to go just below top half and go with an 11th place finish. For Manchester City, City. I think if we can add a little bit more quality to our squad, as long as we do keep ourselves fresh and injury free, I'm going to go for first place for Manchester City once more. Now, obviously, answers the question on who I think is going to win the league is going to be City, but I think this is going to be one of the closest title races that we've had yet, and it could well be down to just a point or two between City and Arsenal is what I'm thinking is going to happen in the Premier League title race. So I think the two games between City and Arsenal at the Etihad and at the Emirates Stadium are going to be absolutely crucial in deciding who lifts the Premier League trophy come May. And who do I think is going to be relegated? I'm going to go for the three newly promoted teams. I think we're going to see a little bit of a conveyor belt, a bit of a yo-yo. So going with Southampton, Leicester City and Ipswich Town. And I think Ipswich Town might surprise a few and push them boundaries. And I think it'll be pretty close, but I think them three teams will be the three teams that are relegated.
Jay Moore here, Manchester United YouTube channel, Stretford Paddock. So what are my thoughts on Everton going into the season? It's a bit of the great unknown, isn't it? I mean, I know you've made a few signings, a few young players have come in around the 15, 16 million pound mark, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on, whether they're sort of good enough to kick Everton on. I know it's been a bit of a struggle the last few seasons in terms of flirting relegation, but I think Everton, with Sean Dyche in charge and some of the players that you've managed to keep hold of as well, especially Jared Branthwaite, who was linked with Manchester United, obviously, then you've got every chance of not just surviving, but maybe moving a bit further up the table. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think Everton will have a better season than they've perhaps had the last couple of seasons, but how that will look, I'm not quite sure. What have I made of Everton's transfer business going into the season? Well, I was looking at it because I didn't know a lot about it, I'm not going to lie, and there's a few players in there. You've got O'Brien, you've got Iro Boonham from Villa, and also Iliman and Deye, if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not. It was at loan at Hyde United. It isn't too far away from us, not long ago. Yeah, I mean, these are players that obviously have got decent reputations, young up-and-coming players. Can they kick Everton on? And the type of players that can come in, do his job for Everton straight away? We'll have to wait and see. I do feel like it makes sense. It's solid transfer business. I think, obviously, keeping hold of Jared Branthwaite was a big one, because he was a player that United have been after for quite some time. You've managed to keep hold of him, and I think sometimes with transfers, it's not necessarily who you bring in, who you sell. Sometimes just keeping hold of certain players. Now, listen, the transfer window's not shut, but it does look like you've sort of said, look, we don't need to sell this player. We've sold Amadou Onana to Villa. I think, was it to Villa for about 50 million quid or whatever it was, so we can keep hold of Jared Branthwaite. I think that's a good deal, or a good sort of move by Everton, because if you don't need to sell players, then don't sell them if they're good players, and he's obviously a good player. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty solid summer. I don't think it's been amazing. I think Evertonians probably agree, but you might know more about the players that you've brought in. We'll have to wait and see. And obviously getting some money in for Onana sort of settles any nerves when it comes to PSR and all that stuff, which is a big issue, not obviously for any club, but Everton have had issues there in the past, so that helps sort a little bit of that out. What are my thoughts on my team going into the new season? Slightly concerned that, you know, we've signed two players, one of whom is injured for 3 months now. We're probably weaker now than we were going in the back end of last season, because you look at the players that have gone out, or the contracts ended, and you look at who we've brought in. It's, you know, and with that injury to Lenny Yoro, it's, you know, you could argue we're slightly weaker. I think Lissandro Martinez come back into the team is massive. We'll have to wait and see whether Luke Shaw is fit. He should be. He played in the Euros, but him coming back into the team could be a massive boost as well. Missing Højlund for a few weeks, that's going to be an issue. Joshua Zirkzee's come in, so that's a good move as well. But yeah, it feels a little bit like we've not made massive roads when it comes to transfers, but I do expect us to make some more signings before the window shuts. I just don't think we'll get Jared Branthwaite. Thoughts on your own transfer business? Yeah, like I said, it's been okay. Couple of good signings. One of whom's injured now, which is annoying, but nothing amazing. The good thing about Lenny Yoro was he's wanted by Real Madrid, so that was a bit of a coup. Joshua Zirkzee, I expect us to be able to get players from Bologna for 40-odd million quid, whatever his buyout was. Wasn't much of a coup, that one. Just a solid player that had a very good season, and hopefully can have some do some decent bits for Manchester United. But yeah, it's been an okay transfer window so far. I do expect us to do a little bit more, though apparently we've got a sell to buy. So we'll have to wait and see who goes. Rumours that Scott McTominay and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, maybe Casemiro could be heading out the door, maybe even Jadon Sancho. If we can get rid of some of those players, that would be great. Predicted finish for Everton and your team. I think Everton will finish a bit closer to mid-table. I'm going to go 14th. I know that's not exactly setting the world alight, but I think, you know, if you can stay clear of the relegation zone, you may disagree. I don't think it's that bad. So I'm going to go with 14th. For my own team, I think it might be 5th. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we can get 4th. I do worry that we might not have enough signings to kick on. And plus, the top 2 with Arsenal and City seems set. Then you've got Liverpool, you've got Villa, you've got Spurs, you've got Chelsea, you don't know what they're going to do. You've got Newcastle, you don't know what they're going to do. So we might end up finishing 5th. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think if we do finish 5th, I think we might do something in the Europa League. Just a feeling. Who will win the league? I think City will win the league again. Everyone's saying Arsenal's the time they're going to challenge it or they're going to win it. I'm not so sure. I think City will probably do 5 in a row, unfortunately. Who will be relegated? Let's have a look, right? I'm going to have a little look at the table because I'm going to have a little butcher's look. Is it going to be the promoted teams again? You could argue that. But no, I'll go with Southampton and let's have a look. I'll go with Southampton and Bournemouth to get relegated alongside. No, hang on a minute. Let me think. I'll go Leicester, Southampton, and Forest to go down. That's my tip for relegation. Anyway, I've been Jay Motti. This has been a bit of a chat with my favourite Everton channel. See you in the next one.
Hi, it's John Lane here for the True Faith podcast, and I just want to give a bit of an overview of kind of how I think Everton are going to do, and Newcastle as well, going into 24-25. So I think Everton they've really struggled, of course, over the last couple of years. I think last year, if you take their points deduction into consideration, they actually had a really good season. They probably would have finished mid-table. So a big improvement in kind of where they have been. And I kind of fancy Everton to do the same again. I think it depends how bad, you know, if there's going to be another point deduction and how that's going to look. But I think if you can manage that bit, then again, I think you're probably looking at, you know, mid-table. If not, you know, potentially with a point deduction, I still think that you're safe potentially. But I think, you know, Dice just had a way of grinding results out there. I must admit, watching you at St James's Park, you know, this season just gone, I wasn't terribly impressed, but you managed to ground out the draw and get something from the game, which is what you needed to do. And that's what Dice's teams tend to do. You've done a lot of business, you know, spending just over 40 million or around 40 million, plus a couple of loan fees. So Dice clearly got an idea of the kind of players that he wants in and what he wants to do. And I think that can only help you. And I think, you know, ultimately it's about your biggest priority this year has to be making sure that you don't slip into any kind of relegation battle and that you just kind of, I suppose, comfortable in the Premier League and just re-establish yourselves from that point of view. I think Newcastle going into new season, you know, we haven't got European football next year, which was our big Achilles heel last year. So we have to really just focus on delivering what we can. Our first 10 games is a fantastic opportunity for us, really, to get some points on the board and make sure that we're in that conversation to qualify for the Champions League. I do think that, you know, we need to get Gahey over the line if we can. Certainly get that elite right centre half to replace Fabian Schär in time. And I do think we need to upgrade right wing. I think, you know, we've got a fantastic left wing attack with either Gordon or Barnes. You've got Isak or Wilson through the middle. And then the right-hand side with Almiron and Murphy is just not the same level. Really like Almiron. I think he's been a fantastic servant over the last 5.5 years. But I think now is probably the time for him to move on. And he would go with my best wishes. But, you know, we need an upgraded right winger at that stage. I think certainly to cement that Champions League qualification. Even if we don't get those two players in, I think we should be finishing in a European place. but we haven't done the improvement, in terms of transfers that I would expect. Lloyd Kelly has come in, which I think improves us in terms of Paul Dummett going out and him coming in. And speaking to a Bournemouth fan, he's very much seen as a player who could go on and play for England, and you can't really tell whether he's a left back or a left centre half. He's quite strong in both areas, so that's got to be very positive. But we haven't really strengthened our first team, and I think we'll have to be really honest about that. And if you don't strengthen, you go backwards. And we finished 7th last year, so we need to make sure that we're doing something apart from playing less football because we're not in Europe, to strengthen the squad, so then actually we can be seen as a serious Champions League contender. And then in terms of the league, I think Arsenal will win it this year. Man City could potentially going to have however many different charges thrown at them. But I just think 5 in a row is going to be a massive feat, even with 115 charges. And even if nothing happens with that, 5 in a row is very hard for them to do. And if they do that, an amazing achievement. But yeah, I fancy Arsenal this year. They've had a couple of really strong seasons, very similar to what Liverpool did before they won the league. So I think that would be interesting. I think in terms of relegation, I think Ipswich, fair play to them. They've done fantastic to come up, but it's going to be so difficult for them to establish themselves in the league next year with what you have to call is more limited resources. I think Bournemouth's one to watch with Solanke going. They're a great side, or certainly were last year. And then potentially, if Tony leaves Brentford, I think that could be a gaping hole for them as well. But ones to watch, I think Palace have lost a couple of really important players in Elise and potential now Gahey, hopefully anyway. And then of course, I think Brighton. I don't know what it is. I think they've signed Yakuba Minter from us, who hadn't kicked a ball in the Premier League and looks like he's had a very good pre-season, but they've also lost Pascal Gross in the middle of the park. So look, I think there's definitely some contenders, but for me, Ipswich definitely go. And then it's going to be 2 of the other 4 to join them. But thank you very much.
What's up, Toffee Blues? It's Wolfie here from Forest Fan TV. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'm here to give you some thoughts on the season ahead, and in particular what I think of Everton and how they're going to end up. For me, I think you've done some pretty good business. I think O'Brien is a cracking signing from Lyon. Forest were in for him, and I think he has plenty of potential and will adapt well into the Premier League. Obviously, you've got the ex-Sheffield United striker. He's a bit of a, untested entity in the Premier League. Will he be ready? I think he could do well, but may need some time. And where do I think Everton will end up this year? For me, I think you will have a tough season. I've seen there's some reports about the old PSR. Yes, Everton fans and Forest fans know it only too well from last season. But I think you'll be okay. I don't see you breaking into the top 10, but I don't think you'll be in a relegation battle either. I think you'll be comfortable, bottom half of the table, more towards the top end, as long as the corrupt Premier League doesn't try to screw you guys over or us over this season. In terms of what I think of my team, Forest, I think we've done some really good business this summer. Milenkovic, a cracking defender coming in. We got Jota, the Portuguese Grealish. He looks like a good prospect as well. And some young and youthful recruitment to go alongside that. And I think Forest, I don't think Everton and Forest will be too far apart. Let me put it that way. We always end up in and around the same places. So if you have a good season, maybe Forest will, and vice versa. Who do I think is going to win the league? I'm going to give you the boring answer. It's going to be Man City. But I do expect Chelsea, even though they've had a terrible pre-season, with some of the signings they've got, could surprise a few this year. And in terms of who's getting relegated, bottom of the league will definitely be Leicester. I think Steve Cooper's out of his depth in the Premier League. And then I want to say Brentford could go down, especially if they lose Ivan Toney. Maybe that's because I don't like him too much and I want them to go. And I think the third team to go will be Ipswich. And I think Southampton will survive. Hope this helps you guys out. What are your thoughts on it all? Make sure to check us out on @ForestFanTV on YouTube.
Hi, this is Mike from Matchday Vlogs, the Southampton football channel, and I'm here to give my thoughts on Everton and also Southampton going into the Premier League season. Right, What are my thoughts on Everton going into the season? Everton flirting with relegation the last few seasons. We had a bit of a relegation battle going the last time we were up. But it appears they've got a bit more stability there, and I think it was never really in that much doubt last season. So I expect them to be in and amongst it in the bottom half of the table, but to be pretty secure, really. What have I made of Everton's transfer business so far? I mean, they've bought a couple of players from Ligue 1, which normally tends to be an inflated value player based on the fact it's come from Ligue 1 to the Premier League. But you never know. Might have a couple of gems there. But I guess the big news is the fact that Onana going to Aston Villa. For what I can read here, being 50 million quid. I do definitely rate that player, so he will obviously be a big miss, but it looks like you're on the right side of the balance with 30 million quid in credit from your incomings and outgoings, so good job. My thoughts on Southampton going into this Premier League campaign, I've got mixed emotions really. My head says buckle up, my heart says trust the process. I think we're going to come into the Premier League. A lot of people are talking about Burnley and the way they approach the Premier League after being promoted, possession-based football, playing out from the back. And yes, we do that. We shipped an awful lot of goals last season in the Championship, where ultimately it's a lot more of a forgiving league. So I do have worry for our defensive frailties, but trust the process, right? In regards to our transfer business so far, I think it's been fairly decent. We've had a couple of incomings, Sugawara coming in at the right back position. It's kind of bought as a Kyle Walker-Peters replacement, but Kyle Walker-Peters is still here. He's still on the books. We were kind of thinking he's going to be on his way out, and it did seem like he was on his way to West Ham. That's not happened, so it might be a case that we'll end up with Sugawara on the right back and Kyle Walker-Peters on the left back position, in which he can play both. Walker-Peters is on the final 2 years of his contract, so now's the time to cash in, or he signs a new deal. So bit up in the air in that one. In regards to other areas, I think Ben Brereton Diaz coming in for £7 million is a very decent bit of business, coming on a 4-year deal. He scored 6 goals in a very poor Sheffield United side last season, so we are in need of goals. That would be one area that I think we do still need to strengthen, maybe in the transfer window, maybe an attacking midfielder and a striker incoming. To wait and see, depending on what comes in and what goes out, or what goes out, so that we can bring more players in. But we have also signed a couple of centre backs, so we look to be shoring things up at the back also. We are still in need of a keeper, with Gavin Bazunu being out injured until, well, beginning of next year really. So our number one choice keeper at the moment is Alex McCarthy, who in pre-season hasn't exactly looked great. My prediction for where Everton will finish, specifically, do you know what, I'm going to say 15th, something like that, somewhere around sort of the mid-low end of the table. And for Southampton, anything above 17th, I'll be more than happy with. But I'm going to put us just beneath you in 16th. How's that? Who do I think will win the league? Man City. Or they'll get relegated on a massive points deduction. Then it'll be Arsenal. Otherwise, it's Man City. Oh, who will be relegated? Leicester, on the basis that they will probably have a large points deduction, and whether or not they can score goals from Steve Cooper's style of football. Brentford, if they sell Tony. Fulham. So again. Right, so there we go. Those are my predictions for the upcoming season.
People, what is good? It's Tapping Topes here, and I'm here to talk about Everton for the Toffee Blues. Now, I've been asked to answer a couple of questions. I'm going to have as best a go as possible to answer, because Everton is just a conundrum. So, first question. What are my thoughts on Everton going into the season? To be honest, I don't know, because when you speak on Everton, you're not just speaking about football. You're not just speaking about the team on the pitch, you're speaking about everything going on off the pitch. I mean, in the last 12 months, they've had points deductions. They're in the process of building a new stadium. That's obviously gone from like a projected 500 million cost to, what was it, like 800 million? And that was one of the things that the Premier League picked up on when they were applying Everton's points deductions last season. There's just loads, and even the whole mess on them being taken over. Mashiri's been trying to sell that club for like what, 2-3 years now. How many times have we seen new investors come in, make an offer for Everton, get into a period of exclusivity, and then the deal just collapses? So Everton, they're not really in the best of spots off the pitch, but surprisingly on the pitch, I actually think they're relatively stable. I think going into this season, of course, they lost Onana, which is a big blow because for all intents and purposes, it's probably their best midfielder. Don't really rate Onana highly, but relative to where Everton are in this moment in their trajectory, he's the best player, or he was the best midfielder, sorry, and he's gone now. But I think they've signed well. Don't really know much about the O'Brien centre-back that they signed from Lyon, I think. So I'm interested to see how he fares. But I thought it was good that they were able to keep Brentford because there was all this uncertainty over Brentford in the summer, obviously, because there was heavy Man United interest. But I think it's good that they were able to keep Brentford because that's a very good centre-back there. And hopefully, if this O'Brien guy is any good, then they could form a stable pairing. Not really impressed with Neil Maupay. Getting back Neil Maupay, I don't really, I know he obviously went on loan to Brentford last year, but I feel like they need better options in attack. But that being said, I think I think he's a really good signing for Everton. I was impressed with what I saw in doses in terms of his time at Sheffield United. Obviously, he went to Marseille.
We are now approaching London Liverpool Street,
I'm on a train.
where
He
this
went to
train
Marseille,
terminates.
didn't really have. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm not really sure how his
Change
career went
for
at Marseille.
Central
But
Line,
either
Circle
way,
Line,
on the surface, that
Hammersmith
looks
City
a
Line,
good signing.
Metropolitan
And
Line,
I'm really
London
intrigued to
Overground,
see Jesper
Elizabeth
Lindstrom.
Line.
I think that's a good signing for Everton as well. So
If
I
you
think
see
one of the
something
things
that doesn't
I've
look right,
really
speak to
begrudged
staff
about
or
Everton
text
is
the
their
British Transport Police on
ability to somehow
61016.
sign these
We'll
low
sort it.
technical players
See
that
it,
don't really
say
provide
it,
any output.
sort
And I
it.
think in Jesper Lundstrom and in Day, I think they've actually got some technicians that can actually come to Everton and raise the standard a little bit. So I think in the window they've actually navigated quite well. Obviously they lost Onana, but I think when you look at the money that they've made versus the money that they spent and the players that they've gotten, I think they've navigated the window fairly well. But me personally, I still think they need to be looking to really try and get a striker who's capable of scoring 10 to 15 Premier League goals. Like, goals is the highest currency in this league, especially in Everton's position when they're in that sort of mid to lower end of the table. Those goals mean everything. So I think I've summarised two questions actually: the transfer business and my thoughts on Everton. Where do I think Everton will land this season? I think Sean Dyche, he's a shrewd navigator in the Premier League, and he's experienced. He knows what he's doing. He can take the game to the opposition when he needs to. He can dig in deep when he needs to. I think Everton are in good hands with him, and I think they'll finish, provided they don't get any points deductions. I think they'll finish mid-table. I can see Everton finishing anywhere from 11th to around probably 14th, 15th. I think that's probably where I see Everton finishing. What are my thoughts on Tottenham going into the season? Tottenham. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm happy with some of the signings that have come in. So I'm happy with Dominic Solanke, even though I don't really like the price. I think that it's too much money. But anyway, I'm happy that he's here. Archie Gray, didn't really watch much of him in the Championship, but I've been told he's good and I've seen him in doses. I think he's had an up and down pre-season, but I think he's shown flashes of the technical quality that hopefully he will bring out with a lot more confidence and a lot more games and experience under his belt in the Spurs shirt. But I'm not happy with Timo Werner. I said this in January. Don't rate the signing, don't rate him as a player. So I don't really know why we've gone back and signed him in the summer. I'm looking at our team, there's still glaring holes. Right wing, we need a new right winger badly, and yet we've done nothing to really push the boat out and go and get that right winger. We made a bid for Neto, apparently a cash plus player bid that got knocked back. Obviously, Chelsea went in, made a stronger bid. Fine. You don't want to get Neto, maybe because of the injuries, and you don't want to commit so much money on someone who's injury prone. Whilst I would have signed Neto anyway, if that is the intention, fine. Prove that you're still willing to sign a right winger, a good right winger, and get us someone on Neto's level or better. That's it. But yeah, I think I've answered the question on where I expect Everton to finish. Who do I think will win the league? I think Man City will win it, but really, I think Arsenal are going to push Man City even closer than they did last season. And honestly, it sounds crazy saying it, but at this point in time, I would not be shocked if Arsenal won the league, because I think they're now in a position where they can really, really compete with Man City. But I'm still going to go with Man City to win the league.
When it comes to Everton going into the season, I think it's going to be another tough one. It's going to be another scrap, especially with rumours of another impending points deduction, which is crazy considering we heard that Man United got away with it due to special circumstances that hasn't been revealed. It's going to be tough with the financial restrictions, not being able to get the investment in the team that you want, to improve the team in the way that you want. Sean Dyche, I think, is going to have his work cut out for him once again, and you have to credit him really with what he's done to keep Everton in the Prem. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the transfer business, I can't say too much about. I think a lot of it for me is wait and see. A lot of players I don't know too much about. Jacob O'Brien, I think, is going to be a good signing. That's someone West Ham are monitoring. Very, very closely. It was a name linked with us. Ultimately went to get to Debo, which I'm very happy with. But I think Jacob O'Brien would have been a player that we would have been happy to see come to the club. So I think that is very much needed, especially with how poor some of the centre backs have been at Everton. So yeah, I think that's the one. The rest we'll have to see. There's nothing that I can say is a clear replacement quality wise for Onana. Just need to invest some of that team. I would sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin if I was Everton. Just can't rely on him, really, to be honest with you. If you could get some decent money for him, I would sell and then reinvest in the team if you can. But yeah, West Ham wise, I'm excited with the signings that we've made. We've made 6 signings, about to make 7 with Aaron Wan-Bissaka before a ball's been kicked. So that is the statement of intent for the club is unbelievable. I don't want to rub it in on it, but yeah, we're just happy to see that. New manager, Moyes is gone, and this is what happens. You guys coined it as Divering Dave. You called him Divering Dave, and the Divering is gone, and now we're being decisive and quick in the transfer window, getting in quality players. So I'm excited for this first season under Lopetegui. But yeah, I think looking at where we'll finish, like I said, I think it could be another tough one. I've seen maybe Everton could still do some really shrewd business in the transfer window. Obviously, you're quite good at getting them loan deals in, so still got time to explore the loan market. But as it stands, I would say maybe about 15th for Everton, which I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest by what I see. Especially, obviously, you've got the points deduction. It could be lower or it could be about 15th. It could galvanise you. It must be exhausting for Dyche and the team, honestly, to deal with that. West Ham, I think we get back into Europe. I'm going to say 7th. I'll say 7th for West Ham, and I think the teams that came up will be the teams that go down. It's boring to say, but looking at the table, I can't see anyone else to be clear candidates to go down, depending on how the severity of Everton's transfer points deduction. So yeah, but hopefully good luck. Listen, good luck for the rest of the season, and we'll see. Oh, and Man City will win the league. Arsenal can go to hell, get in the bin. They'll lose again. They'll bottle it again.
Hello everyone, Jordan Russell here from the Talking Wolves podcast. Been asked to share my thoughts on Everton for this season and also my club Wolverhampton Wanderers. So first of all, with Everton, I think you're going to have a challenging season, if I'm honest with you. Again, there's another impending points deduction looming over your heads at the moment, which as of August, we don't know the outcome of that, and that could really impact, I guess, your final position in the table. I thought last season with the points deductions, you did extremely well. I think Dyche is a very underrated manager, well drilled, And he's going to need to produce that again this season to keep you adrift if there is any points deductions. The only reason I say that, I think, similar to Wolves, I think we're all in that similar boat where realistically, I think we could all finish between 9th and 20th. And any points deductions down there could be pivotal. I still think you'll have more than enough, truthfully, but it's never nice with that. And I think actually the fact that it's the last season at Goodison Park as well, I think fans will get behind the 19 cup finals, as cliche that sounds, and I think you'll be very strong at home like you normally are. What we've made of the business so far from an Everton perspective, I think Jake O'Brien's a good prospect. I think someone that Wolves have been linked with throughout the summer. And again, I can't profess to have seen a lot of him. I saw that he scored a decent goal on his debut for you in a pre-season friendly. And I think, slotting him next to Branthwaite or Tarkowski, I'm guessing it'll be O'Brien and Branthwaite possibly to start the season, or even a back three. It'll be interesting. I think he's it's a very solid foundation for you there. And then Ilman and Dye as well. I know that you got him from Marseille this summer. He had a very good pedigree at Sheffield United. I think he was a player of the season when they came up to the Premier League last year and then moved to Marseille. I don't think it really worked out from there, but it seems like, it didn't really work out for, Ismail Assar, who made that similar move last summer as well. Proven to some extent in England, albeit the Championship more so. But again, I think a very exciting prospect on your hands. And I think he could add goals and a bit of a attacking impetus for you up front. In terms of from a Wolverhampton Wanderers point of view, relatively positive. Last season was batshit crazy. When it come with Lopetegui leaving on the eve of the Premier League season, Gary O'Neill coming in very, very late. He's had a full pre-season and performances have been really good. We lost our last game against Rayo Vallecano to a wonder goal, lost 1-0. We huffed and we puffed, but again, I don't really look into pre-season that much when it comes to results, more so performances and how the team looks. And we played some real exciting football throughout it. We're transitioning from a back five to a back four. It seems to be over the last three pre-seasons with every manager we've had has tried it. And then we tend to go back to a back five because we're just more solid and we seem to play better that way. But playing with the back four allows us to have even more attacking options on the pitch. And we've got some exciting talent there. And there's some that are probably going under the radar and haven't really made big headline news when it comes to the transfer front. But we've brought in some really exciting players during the summer. People such as Jakob Strand-Larsen, centre forward from Celta Vigo, Rodrigo Gomez, who's a winger who came in from Estoril, who's had a fantastic pre-season and very much of the Neto mould. So that's one to watch out for that probably no one's talking about. And we also signed a very exciting right back, Pedro Lima, from the Brazilian leagues. He was due to join Chelsea, as is half the world, it seems at the moment. But we managed to sort of bypass that, give him an opportunity and a pathway into the first team. And in pre-season, he's looked $1 million. Very young, very green, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting for us come the end of the season, especially with question mark potentially of Semedo sticking around with 12 months left on his contract. I think in the transfer window we've been very good. Obviously, we've just lost Pedro Neto for €60 million, just over £50 million, however you want to cut it. Fantastic football on his day, fantastic when he's fit, but too injury prone. And, we can't afford to have an asset who's playing 15, 20 games a season worth £6 million. And I think the only reason there's only going to be one club that would pay that sort of money for him with his injury record, and that was Chelsea. So we've got the most money possible for him as we possibly could. Our captain left as well in the summer, Max Kilman. Julian Lopetegui really made a play to get him back and to work with him again. Now he's gone to West Ham. For me, £40 million is probably £20 million too much. I think they've massively overpaid for him. He's a solid Premier League footballer, but I don't think he's worth anywhere near that sort of money. So if we can reinvest that in the squad, which I think we've got plans to do so, I'm excited to see sort of where we end up with that. When it comes to where I think Everton and Wolves will finish, honestly, I think it's a coin flip about who finishes above who. I know typically we've sort of had, we're almost like Everton's bogey team, it seems, in recent years, where we come to Goodison and snatch a late victory from you, and we seem to have your number a little bit. But genuinely and honestly, when I say this, I think the top of the Premier League's full of a lot of quality. I think it's very hard to break that top 10 now. I think you've got to spend a lot of money to break into it and sustain that. And I think Everton and Wolves are in that pack that are just below that sort of top 10 level. So honestly, I think, like I said earlier, I think we could both finish between sort of 9th, 10th to the 20th, honestly, depending on how the season goes and injuries and all that sort of stuff. I predicted Wolves come 14th, and I'll give Everton 15th, just with that sort of, we don't know what's going to happen with the points deduction, if it happens or not. So we'll go with a solid 15th. I think we'll both stay up in the league. Who will win the league? Again, to be boring, really to be boring, Man City. I just think no one touches them. I think as much as Arsenal huff and puff, I just don't think they've got the bollocks for it. I think they just crumble. And, I feel like Liverpool are going to be the more interesting rivals to Man City this year. I think that Slot seems to have got them playing different football, good football, technical football. And I know it's not going to be nice for people on an Everton podcast here, but I think Liverpool have got a sneaky shout to run City close this season, with getting the rub of the green if they can. Who will be relegated? For me, I think it's hard to look past the relegated three. The promoted three, should I say? Because I think the gulf between the Premier League and Championship is getting bigger and bigger every year, and I think they'll all struggle. I think Leicester are definitely going to have a points deduction and will pretty much be down. I think if they get 15 points, as people are muting, it could well be they're gone already. Southampton, I think they'll struggle. I think Russell Martin's very stubborn in his approach, and I think it'll be very similar to what Company did at Burnley. He'll play one way. They might win the odd game. They might win a few plaudits of trying to play the right way, but I think they'll go down pretty comfortably. I would like Ipswich to stay up. I think it'd be interesting to see what Kieran McKenna can do there. I think he's a very, very good coach. But I think the gulf is probably just a little bit too much. My outside bet, would be someone like Brentford, perhaps. I think Brentford will struggle this year, and I also think Nottingham Forest will also struggle. So if you're nailing my colours to my masters, we'd say I'm going to be boring, unfortunately, again, and say it's going to be Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester who get relegated. Thanks for having me on, and all the best for the season.